My name is Aria Calloway, and the year my world split into before and after was the year I turned 13. If you ask me when I stopped believing I belonged to my own family, I won't tell you it happened slowly. It wasn't gradual. It wasn't subtle. It was a pale yellow sticky note on the refrigerator. Staying at a friend's place. Back in a week. Love you. No signature. No explanation. No phone number. No emergency contact. Just my mother's elegant, slanted handwriting, beautiful and distant, like something written for display rather than meaning. They left the morning of my birthday. I remember because my sister Vanessa Calloway posted a photo at the airport with her rose gold suitcase and oversized sunglasses. The caption read, "Family getaway. Sunshine therapy sun with rays #sparkling heart." My younger sister Chloe Calloway added palm tree emojis and a selfie blowing a kiss. There was no tag. No mention. No missing one. I sat on the porch steps with my backpack beside me, convinced the note was incomplete, that someone was coming. An aunt. A neighbor. A correction. I kept checking the street. Cars passed. A golden retriever barked at me from across the road like I didn't belong there. The sun sank lower. Streetlights flickered on. Still no one came. I went inside when it got dark because even abandonment has a curfew. I microwaved a frozen burrito I didn't like and ate it standing at the kitchen counter. The hum of the microwave felt like the closest thing to conversation I was going to get. By day 2, I told myself it was a misunderstanding. By day 4, something colder whispered inside me. Maybe this wasn't an accident. Being the middle child had always meant being the bridge. Vanessa was the prodigy, varsity letters, honor roll plaques, applause that echoed. Chloe was the finale, recitals, braces colors coordinated with party themes, glittering birthday cakes photographed from 6 angles. I was responsible. Which adults use as shorthand for invisible. But invisibility with a return date is one thing. Invisibility without one is something else entirely. I left the public library with a stack of borrowed books piled high in my arms like armor. The heat shimmered on the pavement, distorting my shadow. That's when the black sedan slowed beside me. The windows lowered. "Aria." The voice was familiar in the way distant thunder is familiar. I turned. Victor Hale, my mother's older brother. The rich one. The one who stopped coming to holidays after a shouting match I was too young to understand. My mother called him arrogant. I later realized that was her word for boundaries. His eyes scanned me, sweat-damp hair, overstuffed backpack, shoes worn thin at the heel. "Why are you walking alone?" he asked carefully. "Where are your parents?" "Florida," I said. The word felt ridiculous. "Florida," he repeated softly. "And you're here." Not a question. A statement. Something unreadable crossed his face. "Get in," he said. Every safety rule I'd ever learned screamed in my head. But hunger is louder than lectures. And loneliness is louder than fear. He took me to a roadside diner with cracked red booths and pie under glass domes. When the burger and milkshake arrived, I stared at them like they might disappear. He didn't ask anything while I ate. He waited. That alone made my chest ache. Afterward, he asked simple questions. "What do you like in school?" "History," I said. "The parts people get wrong." A corner of his mouth lifted. Interesting answer. He drove me home after. Didn't park. Didn't turn off the engine. "Pack a bag," he said. I blinked. "What?" "You're not staying here alone." The house suddenly looked smaller behind me. Colder. I packed in 10 minutes. He didn't ask for permission. Didn't call my parents. Didn't apologize for rescuing me. He simply opened the passenger door again. And that was the moment the world quietly shifted on its axis. Victor's home felt like another planet. Everything was clean, Deliberate, solid. The guest bed looked too perfect to disturb. I perched on the edge of it. "I don't want to mess up the sheets," I whispered. He leaned against the doorway. "They're washable, Aria. Things exist to be used, not feared." I didn't understand how deeply that sentence would root itself in me. The next morning, he poured orange juice into a real glass. Not plastic. Not promotional. Just glass. I held it like it might judge me. "It's juice," he said dryly. "Not a legal contract." I laughed for the first time in a week. It startled both of us. 4 days, I barely touched the food in his refrigerator. I ate cereal in secret at midnight so I wouldn't take too much. On the 12th night, he found me crouched over the counter. "Are you rehearsing to be a raccoon?" he asked. I froze. I didn't want to be a burden. He opened the fridge. Heated pasta. Set it in front of me. "If it's in this house," he said evenly, "it belongs to everyone who lives here." He paused. "That includes you." My throat burned. Crying felt like extravagance. So I swallowed it down with the pasta. Days became weeks. No knock. No call. Vanessa's feed filled with beach sunsets and captions about family bonds. Chloe posed with seashells and captioned "blessed." My name didn't appear once. Victor attended my school conference. When the counselor described me as quiet, capable, underengaged, he simply took notes. Afterward, he bought me a desk. "You should have a place that's yours," he said. Then came my appointments. Dentist visits. Haircuts. Routine care I hadn't known I was missing. He never once said I owed him. He called it maintenance. Like I was something worth preserving. By 14, he'd decided 2 things about me. 1. My posture was terrible. 2. Under it, there was promise. "Stand tall," he'd say, tapping my shoulder. "You're not punctuation." At first I rolled my eyes. Eventually I straightened up before he had to tell me. I joined debate club. My voice shook during my first competition. But I won. He was in the back row, smiling like he'd invested wisely. When I asked for a new phone at 15, he didn't say no. He said, "How much have you saved?" "Nothing." "Then you'll appreciate it more once you earn it." I got a grocery store job. My first paycheck was $712.43. I waved it in the air like victory. He drove me to the bank. "Save half. Spend half," he said. "So you enjoy today without robbing tomorrow." That sentence became the spine of my future. That Christmas, he handed me a leather-bound journal with my initials pressed in gold. "Write what you notice," he said. "Especially the small things." That night, my phone buzzed. My parents in matching pajamas. Perfect tree. Perfect smiles. No tag. No message. I opened the journal and wrote, "Things here are meant to be used, not feared. If it's in this house, it belongs to everyone in it. I am in this house." The words felt bold. Almost stolen. But they were mine. High school came and went like a series of long, uneven breaths. I moved through it cautiously, sometimes cautiously too much. There was always a part of me that half expected someone to remember the note, the one on the fridge, and demand I step back into the shadows. But Victor's presence, quiet and steady, became the anchor I never knew I needed. He never acted like a hero. He acted like a teacher disguised as a man living his life. One Saturday, I came home late after losing track of time at the library with a friend. I tiptoed past the front hall, backpack heavier than usual, stomach grumbling, heart thudding in a nervous rhythm. "You're alive," he said, handing me a sandwich as if the late hour were no surprise. "Next time, text. Otherwise, I'll assume you fell into a ditch and buy a shovel." I laughed, partly out of relief, partly out of embarrassment, and for the first time in weeks, I felt the weight of the world loosen just a fraction. Victor didn't lecture. He demonstrated how to read people before they finished a sentence, how to hold a handshake with purpose, how to respond without flinching, without giving unnecessary apologies. Half the world bluffs, he said one evening over dinner. The other half apologizes for existing. Learn to do neither. I repeated the phrase in my head like a mantra. It became the rhythm behind every raised hand in class, every hesitant attempt at speaking in group projects. I wasn't invisible. I was a student learning the art of being seen. When I asked for a new phone at 15, he didn't hand it over. How much have you saved? Nothing. Then you'll appreciate it more once you earn it. I bagged groceries at a corner store, fumbling at first, counting coins twice before dropping them into the till. My first paycheck, $731.16. I waved it like a flag of triumph, unsure if it belonged to me. Victor drove me to the bank, patient as always. Save half. Spend half. That way you enjoy today without stealing from tomorrow. That sentence became my spine. The backbone of every financial choice I would make for the next 10 years. College had never been part of the script my family wrote for me. Vanessa was the genius. Chloe, the darling. I was supposed to be realistic. But Victor didn't allow realistic to mean limited. He sat with me for hours at the kitchen table, poring over scholarship applications, financial aid forms, and college spreadsheets until my eyes blurred and my hands cramped. He wouldn't simply give me tuition. He insisted I fight for every piece. A scholarship for left-handed students, I spent weeks teaching myself to write lefty. A grant for descendants of beekeepers, I wrote an essay on the delicate balance between humans and bees, despite my only encounter being a panicked sprint away from a third-grade hive. Step by step, I stitched together my own future. When the acceptance letter from Summit Ridge University arrived, Victor examined it with quiet pride. "Congratulations," he said. "Now go prove them right." Move-in day was chaos for everyone, my dorm overflowing with boxes, balloons bobbing, parents crying in doorways. Everyone except me. Victor carried my belongings up 3 flights, refusing to let me lift anything heavier than a pillow. "This counts as your annual workout," he joked. "Don't tell my trainer I actually broke a sweat." I nodded, swallowing a lump in my throat. I wasn't expecting recognition from anyone else. I had it here, steady as his voice and hands. College was a shock. Every step felt uncertain. I was the girl in thrift shoes carrying detergent-scented bags while everyone else had luxury tote bags. Victor called every Sunday without fail. Sometimes it was just a tease. "Dean's List again, Miss Calloway? Still surviving on ramen and determination?" "Yes," I'd reply, half smiling. "Good," he'd murmur. "Struggle keeps you sharp." His words became my gravity, the constant in a world that seemed determined to pull me off balance. It was during my sophomore year that I met Ethan Monroe at the community garden volunteering event. He wasn't a hero. He didn't try to save me. He planted tomatoes and onions, and I awkwardly pretended I knew how to dig. "You're doing it wrong," he said with a grin, not unkind. "Clearly," I said, rolling my eyes. Slowly, carefully, he became someone I trusted. Not because he was perfect, but because he respected me in ways my family had never bothered to. By junior year, the past tried to sneak back. Sabrina, Ethan's ex, resurfaced at social gatherings. She smiled, polished, like a threat wrapped in charm. She reminded me, briefly, of Vanessa and Chloe, the ones who left me behind at 13. One night, I learned Ethan had coffee with Sabrina to discuss a business plan. My stomach twisted. I wanted to yell, accuse, vanish. Instead, I remembered Victor's words. Half the world bluffs. The other half apologizes for existing. Do neither. I did neither. I simply said, calmly, next time, let her find someone else's generosity. He nodded. No defensiveness. Just quiet understanding. By senior year, I had grown taller in posture and spirit. I was no longer waiting for my family's approval. I was building my own life, with Victor's lessons as scaffolding. I earned my degree in civil engineering. Victor sat in the front row at graduation, clapping so loudly the dean paused to glance. He handed me a modest silver pen. Use this to sign the contracts you'll be proud of. I smiled. Not my autograph. One day. Build first. Brag later, he said. And in that moment, I finally understood, I wasn't disposable. I hadn't been forgotten. I had been found. By the time I was 19, Victor's presence in my life was less like a shadow and more like a tether, the kind that keeps you steady even when the wind shifts. But life has a quiet way of testing the strongest anchors. It began subtly. First, it was the cough he brushed off during our Friday dinners. Then a hand tremor while pouring coffee. A missed punchline in his favorite TV show. I told myself it was fatigue. Victor had always moved fast, carried weight for others. Surely, it was nothing. But denial is a fragile shield. It was a Tuesday morning. My phone buzzed relentlessly. Grace from Victor's office was on the line, her voice trembling. Miss Calloway. I'm so sorry. Victor collapsed in his sleep. They've taken him to St. Luke's. The world became a blur, red lights, screeching brakes, the drumbeat of my pulse in my ears. When I finally reached the hospital, everything was white and still. Machines hummed a quiet warning, each beep echoing like a countdown. Victor looked impossibly small against the sterile room, but when he saw me, a crooked grin tugged at his lips. Don't look so grim, he rasped. Told them I wanted a free night's stay. 5-star, if you ignore the food. I tried to laugh. My throat burned. You scared me. First time for everything, he muttered. Then, softer, almost wistful, sit, kid. We sat, the rhythm of the hospital quiet around us. Machines beeped. Footsteps shuffled. The world beyond the door seemed paused, waiting for us to speak. You know, he said, his voice raspier than I'd ever heard, I always thought your parents would teach you how to stand tall, manage money, argue without raising your voice, but I'm glad it turned out to be me. I whispered, don't talk like that. Like what? He asked. Like I shouldn't have learned these things from you. He smiled faintly, the half-grin I had known for years. Honest. Comforting. You've exceeded every expectation anyone ever had for you, Aria, he said, taking my hand, a rare gesture. Just remember one thing. What? You're not the extra piece. You never were. I blinked, swallowing the lump in my throat. For a heartbeat, it felt like the world had returned to order. And maybe, for that brief moment, it had. Victor stayed home after a few nights at the hospital. The man I knew, strong, steady, untouchable, was now quieter, slower, softer around the edges. But he never stopped teaching. Every Friday, we continued our dinners. Every Sunday, he called, teasing about my work, my victories, my failures. Every lesson, small or large, continued a hand squeeze, a reminder, a quiet piece of wisdom tucked into ordinary life. Yet, the subtle cracks widened. Prescription bottles on the counter, repeated stories, moments where he stared too long at nothing. I noticed, and he noticed me noticing. But neither of us spoke. There was a silent agreement. The life lessons would continue until they couldn't. That Christmas, Victor handed me a small gold-wrapped box. Inside was the leather journal he had given me at 13, now overflowing with words. Notes from dinners. Jokes. Observations. Even receipts from places we'd gone together. each with a comment or quip scribbled alongside. The final page made me pause. His handwriting trembled, but it was legible. If they ever try to erase you again, remember this. You've already written your own chapter. I leaned in and hugged him tightly. Not the careful hug of restraint, but a real, unguarded embrace. He chuckled softly, murmuring, "Easy, you'll break a rib." I held on longer anyway. Months later, the phone rang early. Grace's voice broke as she said, "Aria, I'm so sorry. Victor passed in his sleep this morning." Time slowed. My hands clutched the phone, every part of me frozen. The world felt muted, as if someone had turned down the volume on life. He was supposed to be okay. He was supposed to joke about cholesterol, complain about the coffee, tell me to straighten my posture. Instead, he was gone. The days that followed dissolved into a blur: calls, funeral arrangements, decisions left in his careful, exacting hand. Of course, he had named me the executor. No one else could navigate the details that mattered. Which tie he wore for serious meetings. Which songs he grimaced at. How he liked his roses, plain and white. The service was intimate. Friends, colleagues, the people who truly mattered. And then, they appeared. My parents, Vanessa, Chloe, walking in like they were arriving at some glossy photo op. My mother hid behind oversized sunglasses, a shield for both her eyes and her conscience. My father delivered solemn words about loss, despite years of absence. Vanessa and Chloe fidgeted and whispered about the house and inheritance, eyes glinting with greed barely disguised as grief. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I simply turned and walked away. Within days, the messages began: texts, social media requests, voicemails. My mother, sweet and fake, "Honey, we should reconnect. Family is all we have. Vanessa, we should discuss estate matters." Chloe sent an emoji, attempting to make grief fashionable. I smiled faintly. The journal in my lap whispered its lessons. Victor had taught me to stand tall, to claim my place. They were about to discover what happens when quiet strength meets preparation. The law office smelled of polished leather and quiet authority, the kind of place that demanded you sit straight whether you wanted to or not. Heavy curtains muted the city outside. Dark wood furniture lined the room. Chairs compelled perfect posture. The air felt dense, waiting. At the head of a long mahogany table sat Mr. Halpern, Victor's longtime attorney. Opposite him, my family arranged themselves like chess pieces, my parents, Vanessa and Chloe, dressed in immaculate morning suits. My mother dabbed at invisible tears with designer tissues, my father folded his hands as if preparing for a sermon. Vanessa's phone glowed beneath the table, and Chloe leaned in to whisper, "Do you think he left us the house?" I sat across from them, journal on my lap. Black dress, simple, no statement jewelry. No armor necessary. Halpern cleared his throat. His voice was calm, deliberate. "We are here to review the last will and testament of Victor Calloway. The usual formalities passed, debts settled, small donations to charities, gifts to long-term staff." My family fidgeted, trying to appear patient but practically vibrating with greed. Then came the remainder of the estate. Halpern turned a page slowly, reading each word like glass shattering silently. "To my estranged relatives who remembered Aria only when convenient, I leave nothing." Silence split the room like lightning. My mother gasped. Vanessa's mouth fell open. Chloe blinked, stunned. "He's joking, right?" Chloe whispered. Halpern didn't pause. He turned another page. "To my niece, Aria Calloway, abandoned at 13, but never absent from my life, I leave the entirety of my estate. All assets, properties, accounts, and holdings." For one suspended heartbeat, the room stopped breathing. Then 4 pairs of eyes locked on me. Vanessa was first. That's impossible. He barely even knew her. I kept my tone steady. He knew me for 15 years. You just stopped paying attention. My father's face flushed crimson. You manipulated him. You poisoned him against his family. I rested my palm on the journal, fingertips tracing the worn leather. No. You did that yourselves. The day you left me with a note on the fridge. That was your choice. Chloe tried her practiced sweetness. Come on, Arya. You're not really keeping everything, are you? We're family. I let out a slow breath and smiled, not cruel, not smug, just steady. Funny. 15 years of silence doesn't sound much like family, but sure, now that there's money on the table, suddenly we're related again. Mr. Halpern closed the folder with a soft snap. The will is airtight. Victor was very specific. Any contest will be dismissed immediately. The disbelief in their faces curdled into the same anger they had worn years ago when they realized I no longer needed their permission to exist. I smoothed the front of my dress and stood. If you'll excuse me, I have things to take care of. Mr. Halpern, thank you for your time. Vanessa hissed, this isn't over. I met her gaze evenly. It was over when you stopped calling me your sister. Then I walked out. Outside, the city breathed differently. Sunlight bounced off glass buildings, sharp and clear. For the first time, I saw myself, not the scared 13-year-old clutching a backpack on a porch, waiting for someone who never came, but a woman standing on her own ground, exactly where she chose to be. I pulled out my phone and typed a message to the one person who mattered, who had always seen me. Wish you were here to see their faces, old man. Then I paused, thinking of Victor, and added, you were right. I wrote my own chapter. Later that week, I stood on the balcony of Victor's house, my house now, watching city lights shimmer like the heartbeat of everything he built and left behind. I held the journal, flipping to the final page one more time. His words, faded but vivid, still burned bright. If they ever try to erase you again, remember this. You've already written your own chapter. I whispered to myself, smiling. I did. And I'll keep writing. I wasn't thinking about wealth, or deeds, or status. I was thinking about that girl on the porch, backpack in hand, the sticky note still lingering in memory. If I could reach back to her now, I'd tell her. One day, you'll have a home that doesn't treat you like a visitor, a life that never apologizes for taking up space, and a name no one overlooks. Ethan stepped onto the balcony, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. You okay? I nodded, leaning into him. Yeah, just feels like full circle. He looked down at the city spread beneath us. He'd be proud, you know. I tilted my face to the soft blue sky. I think he already is. Below, the city lights shimmered like turning pages. And for the first time, the story belonged entirely, irrevocably, to me. With Victor's guidance ingrained in her, Arya stepped fully into adulthood. She launched her engineering career, steady and ambitious, often recalling his lessons on patience, integrity, and presence. Ethan remained by her side, a partner in life, not a savior, supporting her quietly while she carved her own path. Family ties that had once caused pain became irrelevant. Arya no longer waited for validation from Vanessa, Chloe, or her parents. Every Friday, she'd visit Victor's favorite cafe or sit on the balcony of the house he left her, journal in hand, writing notes of reflection, gratitude, and plans for the future. His words, "You're not the extra piece," echoed in every decision she made. Through the years, Arya learned that legacy isn't measured in wealth, but in the strength, values, and courage passed down. She became a mentor to younger engineers, teaching them not just how to build structures, but how to build resilience. Years later, standing on her balcony, Arya looked out over the city Victor had once guided her to conquer. The lights shimmered like stories unfolding. She held the leather journal, worn at the edges, each page a testament to lessons learned and love given. She whispered to the memory of the man who had saved her from being invisible. I did it, Victor. I wrote my chapter. And I'll keep writing. She had a home that welcomed her fully, a life she owned, and a heart strong enough to embrace love, challenge, and joy. The girl who once waited on a porch, alone, had grown into a woman who would never again be forgotten by anyone, least of all herself. The story ended not with vengeance, but with triumph, independence, and peace. Arya's chapter was hers alone, written, lived, and fully claimed.